All right, good evening and welcome to the City of Sunbury Council meeting. It is September 6th, 2023 at 7:30 p.m. Would you please join me in a moment of silent prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance? Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mayor St. John,
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper. Here. Mr. Capel.
Here.
Mr. Ghost,
Here.
Mr. Neff,
Here.
Mr. Grumney.
Here.
Mr. Martin.
Here.
7 present, we have quorum.
All right, we did have a meeting, I believe it was 3 weeks ago, August 16th, 2023. Is there a motion for approval?
Motion for approval.
Got a motion by Mrs. Cooper. Second by Mr. Capel. Discussion.
In the very first line, it says that these are the minutes from August 2nd, and it's actually August 16th.
Okay. I will get that changed.
Thank you.
Are you ready?
Any other edits? Roll call.
Mrs. Cooper? Yes. Mr. Capel?
Yes.
Mr. Ghost,
Yes.
Mayor St. John,
Yes.
Mr. Neff,
Yes.
Mr. Grumney,
Yes.
Mr. Martin.
Yes.
7 yeas, minutes passed.
All right, we're on to the visitor section. Are there any visitors that would like to speak with City Council this evening? Come on up, please state your name. Keep it to about 3 minutes.
Small prayer. I have a question and 2 comments. First of all, I hand it to the police department. The bomb and the pipe bomb that weren't there and the shooter, the suspected shooter. I think our police did it and did outstanding. The whole thing, I did walk around the square. I saw very relaxed, controlled atmosphere. I was glad with you guys. I think it was handled outstanding. And my question is, I've got this agency letter. Did the city join with the agency? I never know if these are true or not. So, and it's they had we were part of an aggregate before, so this is the real deal. I don't have to do.
If you want to, you can hand it to one of our administration officials and then maybe after the meeting, they can get you a response.
Okay, and then my other question was.
And then can you speak into the microphone? This is being recorded. Is the microphone on? It's broken. Oh, okay. So you say it first and I'll repeat what you say. Oh, go ahead.
I was wondering what the city and the council has done about my neighbor behind me and purchasing the road Vernon Street. Has that gone anywhere? I'm still having issues with the gentleman and I'm wondering how far along we are in purchasing that road. Is the city going to purchase the road or did this fall through or where do we stand on it?
I think we'll respond after the meeting, but it has not fallen through. Yeah, that's about all I'll say right now. We're nearing the end. That's what I would say.
Is what?
We're nearing the end.
So it is still alive.
Yes, very much. We talk about you more than you know.
Well, thank you.
Thank you very much. We're gonna get the aggregation letter. We'll get Ms. Dreyer a response and we'll also get back to you on your neighbor and your property. All right, thank you very much. Any other visitors here this evening? Mr. Barry Bennett? We got Mr. Barry Bennett. Come on up.
I don't have anything to say.
Long time listener, first time caller.
Yeah. Well, just in regards to the aggregation, it reminded me I wanted to make a comment anyway. I'm not sure this is the right way to do it. But personally, I don't particularly care for having to opt out of a program that I didn't know was even being put together. It's not just, I think it happens with gas and with electric. You would be surprised at how many steps you have to go through to opt out on one of these things. So it's great. And that's really all I want to say. I don't know if there's any way to not have that happen, but I'd rather opt in than opt out. But I don't know if it's possible. I just thought I'd
Thank you.
Thank you.
So this isn't a response to the question because we don't respond to questions. Just kidding, Mr. Barry Bennett. But the first thing I'll say is aggregation. One of the reasons it's opt-in is because that gives us the greatest rate. So it gives the supplier, the aggregator certainty. And then the other thing, correct me if I'm wrong, aggregation, if you have an existing aggregation agreement, this does not override or trump that, correct? So it's only if you're paying the supplier pricing, in this example, AEP's price, highly inflated price, in my opinion, you would be getting the aggregated deal.
But the one thing I would add is if you are in another program, you can opt out of that program and get into the city program. But as Mr. Bennett indicated, I mean, there's a process for doing that that's outside of the city's aggregation program.
Sure, I would say. But comment is noted. Thank you. And I believe we have one more visitor potentially, maybe two. Come on up. What's your name, sir?
Hi, yeah, so my name is Noel. I just use the area, for the credit boards. And I'm here with Insight.
That's awesome. Welcome to the community. Jordan's been a blessing, showing up to some meetings, doing some community service, getting to know everybody. So if you're a friend of his, you're a friend of ours. Welcome. All right, any other visitors? All right, we're on to committee reports. Mr. Ghost.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. We had the Parks meeting earlier this evening. A couple items on the list here. We had the Reservoir Park discussion. Everyone was in that meeting, as well as the services meeting. You've all heard that. So that's about to go out to bid. I think we have a general consensus on the numbers there. J.R. Smith Park planning continues. We're trying to decide the phasing plans now and how that lines up and times with the grant opportunities. We still have another few more touch base meetings to do, and then we have some more calculations to do on the splash pad in terms of cost, the recirculation system versus the flow through system. But we're getting there. We're getting pretty close. Let's see what else. Wayfinding signage with the Healthy Living Grant. I think Alyssa presented that, and we talked about pocket parks, some preliminary parking planning with the two corner parks still ongoing. That's about it.
With the
Great update, Mr. Ghost.
Reservoir Park.
Yeah, the Reservoir Park initially talked about that.
Okay.
Services as well, familiar with that.
Can you guys in the audience hear us okay? Can you turn the volume up just a smidge there? Thank you.
I don't have anything, man.
Yeah, all right. Mr. Capel, take a breath. You're ready to go.
That's okay. It's not going to be that much. Services committee meeting was right before our meeting here, and we also talked about the reservoir project. Tim hit on most of it, but of interest to the services side of thing, the drawdown plan is funding. Haven't had that figured out yet, so we're going to talk more on the funding in our finance committee meeting in a couple weeks. We revisited Sunbury Estates trees, and the maple tree is doing damage to the sidewalks there. The immediate action is to start putting together a plan to remove the 30 that are actually doing significant damage, and then we'll revisit the remainder of the plan afterwards. We did get a couple bids on our facilities project, so there's action on our agenda tonight for that. So we'll revisit that tonight. 2023 street program, currently tentative completion date would be 17th of this month. And then in our ongoing fiber project, We heard from Delaware County that they're trying to extend fiber, or looking to extend fiber rather, into Trenton Township. So we're going to hold a minute and coordinate with Delaware County to see if we can piggyback with them or coordinate with them in their use of ARPA funds to expand fiber options around the city. And that's everything I've got. So.
I have one other comment from Parks and the report with the reservoir, just for the record, for the amenities at the park. We agreed on 2 floating fishing piers, and we have an asphalt parking lot and an 8-foot asphalt path going up the slope. And we're adding 3 or 4 benches, I believe, and a dog station and trash receptacles. So that's phase 1.
All right, thank you. Mrs. Cooper?
Thank you, Mayor. We had a planning and zoning commission on August 28th. We heard a presentation from Elisa Duffy Rogers. She is a CT consultant planner. She gave a great presentation on the limited industry district that we're talking about, looking to add that to our current zoning code. This will not be a zoning, that district that will be on our map. It will just be a floating district that we can implement. I'm thinking there's going to be a public hearing at our next zoning commission, right? And then it'll come to council, and we'll be inviting Elisa Duffy Rogers to come to council and give probably a virtual presentation that she gave us. And it was really helpful. A lot of good questions. Commission, it was a really good meeting. I thought it's exciting to see this go forward, and I'm sure we'll talk about it later in the meeting with the schools and stuff. So it was a good meeting.
Great update, Mrs. Cooper. Mr. Martin, nice haircut.
Thanks.
Looking
Welcome.
snazzy.
I don't have any committee reports other than I got a haircut.
Looking good.
Best looking one on council.
Great, Mr. Neff? Nothing to report. All right, I just wanted to add.
You have a report.
You have a,
Events committee report?
you
Yes.
get that.
That one was a brief events committee meeting.
Can you
And
pull your microphone down, sir?
that was a brief events committee. And I cannot think there was much to report.
There was a block
Except
party.
the block-
It's a little comfortable. The Big Nut Strut.
I think that strut was approved. And is there anything else? I don't believe there's anything else. It's a fast.
Who's the chairman of the committee?
There.
Okay.
He appointed him to give the,
Got it.
we'll circle back.
I'm
It's
glad that
something
we
very
informed everybody
important.
that the block party was approved. So that
Sounds like a fun committee. Anybody else want to join it?
Well, I was in North Carolina the day of that meeting.
Yeah.
I'm off the hook.
That was a tough meeting because Amber got sick and Daryl was out of town, and Dana, like a rock star, she led the meeting for us. So Dana, do you remember it? There was a third thing, I think.
I think.
It'll come to us.
Those are the 2 big things on there. though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, we talked about the citizen recognition program. And we picked a person. I'm not gonna say it on the record right now because we're gonna get a hold of them and their family. That was the third one. So I'm hoping we can maybe reach out to them and invite them to come to our September 20th meeting and award them, picture with the mayor, all that awesome
Change,
stuff.
Right, it's the same people. Okay, yes.
Yep.
Okay, we'll get that out.
Okay, I'll touch base with you. Thanks, Murray, for all your help. Teamwork.
All right. I wanted to add to what Mrs. Cooper said about the zoning code. So this is a brand new zoning district. It's titled the Limited Industrial District. And this is where this originates from. Even before Intel, our area was experiencing, significant growth. You know that from the residential side primarily, but in our region, light industry, light manufacturing, data centers, hyperscalers, technology related consumer goods, consumers of technology related goods, all these industries are like knocking on the door, if you will. And the way that large companies come into the pipeline typically, especially when they're coming in droves, is through Jobs Ohio or One Columbus. One Columbus being the region's economic development arm for Jobs Ohio. And so, you know, we have Jobs Ohio and One Columbus reaching out to us and like, hey, we understand you're doing a lot of good things. Here's some of the parameters for the industries that we're looking at. You know, it's got to be a 20-minute drive time from X. It's got to have adequate housing. It's got to have adequate infrastructure, things like that. But there's so many other things other than just like land, utilities, and things like that. There's school compensation agreements. There's tax exemption agreements. There are zoning code. That's probably like one of the fundamental things. And ultimately, we took a different approach than we have historically. Historically, we've looked at our existing zoning code and said, how can we fit these businesses into our code? I mean, our code, correct me if I'm wrong, Dave, but I mean, originally was drafted probably in the 80s, somewhere like that. And you know, it's morphed over time, but not a significant overhaul. And it's a lot of work to overhaul a zoning district anyways. Same process in terms of, you know, public hearings and public engagement and votes and approvals. So what we did instead, and this has been months and months and months of work with Mr. Breen, Mr. Whited, Wes Hall, Daryl, Elisa, who you mentioned. And, you know, we also engaged the private sector and then groups like One Columbus and said, okay, instead of us saying, you know, how can we fit it into our code? Let's tell you about some of the industries we want to be able to attract and then fit the zoning code around it. And one of the things I'm really proud of with this particular zoning district that hopefully council will hear within the next probably 3 meetings or so is how the zoning district complements the existing surrounding area, how it incorporates setback standards based on height and slope calculations, and really focuses on things like regional detention and roadway widths and all these things that will make a very, very nice light industrial district. You know, I know I'm going on and on about this, but this is very important in the context of what we have on our doorstep right now. And that is that we need to be proactive in converting the way that the tax burden falls on both city residents and I'll say school district residents alike. And we are just so heavily dependent, heavily weighted on residential development to subsidize primarily like the real estate burden for schools and taxes and parks and all these other things. And our primary growth sector with industry was Kintner Parkway. And, you know, our industrial park was, I mean, 5 years ago, supposed to expand north. But, you know, things happen. The school district purchased the land. It's great. We're very thankful to have the new high school and the new elementary school in Sunbury, very blessed. But we've got to take a different direction now and figure out how do we take advantage of these rising tides. And the zoning code is a very, very important part of that. And we'll hit on another very important part later on in the agenda. But I'm really excited about the zoning code. I think it's our most nimble, modern zoning code that will allow us to be prosperous in the future. I think
it's exciting time because we're with Elisa's helper writing it.
Right.
And she was wonderful to work with and took all the questions and she was like, oh, we can add that. We can add that. Let me get you more information. So I'm excited for them to see the presentation and get your guys' opinions on it. It's very exciting.
Very exciting.
It's gonna be great for the city.
Agree. That's where we are with that. So that's the last committee report we have, and we're on to the police report. And I'd like to hand it over to either DC Wade or Chief Howard to give the police report. Gentlemen.
I'm not trying to think I'm not. It didn't work out very something.
My microphone's not working. You can hold it if you want. That's working.
Okay, item 1, the drone. All pilots have completed their FAA Part 107 online training. The work to obtain and register our equipment with the FAA, working through online familiarization with specific equipment related to operations, storage, and care. The pilots will be conducting Part 107 test review sections and look to attend the FAA testing site training at the end of September. They're also reviewing other software and record keeping management that's suited for our units.
That's a huge accomplishment. Everybody's through the FAA 107. That's a big hurdle.
Yeah.
Really nice job on
I
that.
will say that when they got started on it and they got to the line, they stuck with it and. So,
You want to add anything, DC Wade?
Just wanted to add in one of the pilots from just a little bit behind. She's our FTO, third shift FTO, who was on vacation. So she's a field training officer for one of our employees, so there was nowhere, time that put her a little behind. We had expected by the state that it would be done, she's that close. So it's just a matter of reviewing and testing.
It's great. Thank you.
any more questions on that? Item 2, civil and sound. SPD covered the event of our office this year. We had 5 special duty uniformed officers and a supervisor were on site throughout the day. We allowed overtime for our second and third shift patrol officers to provide remote patrol presence. There were no serious altercations. We conducted a debriefing of the event on August 28th with the civic representatives, city officials, and the STNG reps, looking forward to civil 2020.
Let's give it up because that's an amazing sizzle.
Are you guys contemplating any changes at all, significant changes for next year? Security wise or set up, beer garden, things like that?
I'm not sure that will have to be something to discuss with the city, to see if they're willing to continue with especially what they've done. That has worked out in the last few years.
I can speak to this. Civic's always looking for ways to logistically make the flows a little bit more efficient. I think they recognized this year there was such a peak demand in this like 1 hour period that it caused what I would call ingress egress concerns. Anybody who was around or could see a vantage point of the beer garden, probably around 8, 9 o'clock, it was very, very busy. So I think I talked to Cindy Earn about this. I know she's trying to look at other options to either expand, shift, move the beer garden slightly.
But security wise and your setup and your plan, that's probably remaining the same, right? That's worked out well the last 2 or 3 years.
It's all worked out well. If anything is needed, if it grows, we're looking at maybe a couple more spots that we have to fill with that event. And I can also tell you that we have never went to the city with a concern or an issue that they didn't make happen.
Agree.
So they expect us to take care of things. They know what we expect from them, and they went above and beyond to make that happen.
So this is the first year that we handled all the security in-house exclusively.
Yes. With the special duty and the patrol, that's the first year we go. On other times, we have maybe people in. And there's always been that this year, especially reviewing all the rates on the very last step of. So basically, they not work, they can know to get over.
Good deal.
So Civic will continue, or Sizzle will continue despite the Reaganomics retirement.
Yes, I think Reaganomics were pretty pleased with Sunbury's.
They're awesome.
Yeah.
It was great.
They were great.
Before we get to item 3, are there any questions on the postal agreements on the back page?
I'd like to just recognize, I know she put the mental health calls stats out there. Thank you very much for doing that. Very much appreciated.
Anything unusual or out of the ordinary on the stats there, Chief?
Out of the ordinary, but it's this is kind of the norm now.
Okay.
Nothing's really on the rise. Just there's changes.
Just the one thing I would mention that I don't believe is on this report. If it is, it's buried within the numbers. North Star had a significant break-in event, 10, 15 homes, cars stolen, things stolen out of cars. So similar to what happened in Sunbury there, they're bouncing around to different areas, but I know that we at least were in contact with the sheriff's department and potentially even supported them in that a little bit. Is that right, Wade?
Yeah, I didn't see anything on that.
Yes, North Star, Bryn Mawr, and Charlotte Township, all three were hit all around. We were in communication with Becca Smith and sent information out.
Was that a certain day or days, multiple days or weeks or?
It was over a couple of days, but it's not sure that it's people catching stuff that was after, reporting it later and coming in later. But it was about a period.
How has your school traffic been since we've met 3 weeks ago? Has it seemed to be everyone's slowing down and knowing what they're doing, or?
Where we've,
Yeah.
overtime, we've had, stops, we've had citations issued. It's the beginning of the year.
Okay.
See the beginning, towards the end, anxious for the summer. The one thing that we would just reiterate is please, whether you're school officials, whether you're a parent taking the kids, or whether you're somebody coming out of these neighborhoods, just be mindful of the traffic patterns. You're gonna have new drivers that are now 16 coming in there. Be mindful of that, take your time, be patient, because some of these new drivers have a tendency to be a little slow at times, or maybe they're driving too fast. We're trying to mitigate it. I don't see anything that's trending bad. We're going to stay on top of it and continue to enforce in the schools.
Thanks.
On item 3, I'm gonna let DC Wade trying to do this with you guys. As you guys know, I went on vacation on Friday. I was out of town, unavailable, and I get this text message of mass chaos.
I never catch a break, Chief.
Well, I've worked with this guy since 1994, and I can tell you guys, I felt very comfortable not being here, knowing that it was in good hands. I never questioned what he's doing, why he's doing it. We've worked enough with each other that, it's kind of twins where you finish each other's sentences. Sometimes he has trouble finishing mine. I'm gonna let him give that brief, but he has asked that from now on, I go on vacation, I just whisper in the mayor's ear, he doesn't want to know, because every time I leave, something like this happens. So, with that, I'm gonna leave.
No more vacations.
Just an overview of it. Obviously, there's a lot more to it than at the end you'll see. Basically, on Sunday, August 27th, as you can read this, I'm not going to try to regurgitate everything that's on the paper you have in front of you. But the one things I would like to stand out to me is the Sergeant Meacham has took charge of the situation directly, kept me informed as I was going from the lawnmower to my truck to drive in, and made a great assessment, and to tip of the cap to the training he'd sent him and Officer Ramirez to the active shooter incident management training that's held within the county here. This is an example when you start seeing this stuff, how to set this stuff up and how to handle it. But within 1 to 2 minutes, they were on the scene. I named the officers Holden and his training Officer Collins were there immediately with Meacham taking an initial action. Within 1 to 2 minutes, there was unfortunately a bridal shower that was in town hall. Wonderful people. They will have a memory never to forget, I'm sure. Officer Holden, they had evacuated them, and I believe, as I understood, at the time Amber was driving by and seeing these 4 individuals standing out on the side of the street. She loves them in the van and gets them tucked away safe somewhere. It's an example of the community coming together. The officers were tasked. We had what we believe to be an active shooter who had presented us with a threat of with a high-powered rifle and pipe bombs placed throughout town hall with the intent to do serious damage to individuals and or property with both. So obviously our mindset is somewhere else. Thank you, Andrew, for stepping up on that. It went in with Plummer and Officer Lawbacher that came in as early as they could as they were coming in, rushed in and assisted. And a huge tip of the cap to the Delaware County Tactical Team, the Delaware County Crisis Negotiation Team, Columbus Fire Bomb Squad, the Noah Township Police, Delaware County Sheriff's Office, the dispatchers handling the chaos. I can't even begin to tell you in a situation like this how the ability to communicate and work well with your neighbors goes beyond. And this is a prime example. An immediate emergency notification or there, once we saw that there may be an imminent threat, notification was shelter in place within a half a mile. In the investigation, fairly quickly, we were determined it was most likely a swatting incident. And then obviously after we determined it was, we still go through, listen, whenever you have a situation like this, everything looks suspicious to everybody, including an apple set in Johnny Appleseed's hand here. It was reported as a possible suspect item that was placed out of the ordinary. That we have no problem with. You know, we smile at it now and we can smile at it, but you don't know what it is until we check it out. So with the Columbus's bomb squad here, the bomb dogs, we were able to secure the area, search the buildings of concern, areas of concern, and then obviously it took us approximately 3 hours to get through this before we gave the all clear. Detective Chris Smith right now is diligently working with this investigation, chasing every lead possible, working with local, state, and federal partners in this investigation. It will not go by the wayside. You know, when the media was there and was talking to media, I just wish that I could get through to the individual who is responsible. This is not going to go forgotten. But Detective Smith is on top of this, and you know, everybody, there was nobody, no weapons, no bombs, nothing was located. It was a SWAT incident, which has become a very common thing. So that's an overview of what took place on August 27th. If you have any questions, try to answer them.
The viable suspects, there has been 1 or 2 identified, correct? Can you speak?
I just want to remind everybody, we're in a public meeting on record forever.
Yeah, I mean, sure, there's leads, there's stuff that we're looking at. Yes. Thank you.
All right, we're on to the administrator's report.
All right, just 2 items I want to highlight. One is, I'm not sure this group has heard collectively, but the city of Sunbury is participating in a program we call Water Reuse. It is a national association that basically promotes the use of treated wastewater for some other purpose, primarily commercial and industrial cooling agent, whatever the case might be. The city of Sunbury has been invited to be one of the 5 founding utilities in the state of Ohio to help establish a chapter of this national association here. So we're working on that, as the mayor indicated earlier, with the level of economic activity, development activity that's going on in and around the area. Water will be a little bit of a challenge moving forward, or could be a challenge moving forward. And so this may be a tool or a resource that we may be able to use to kind of help facilitate that long term. So just want to let folks know that we're working with that organization, and the city of Sunbury is taking a lead statewide in terms of helping set up the chapter. And I will add, the Ohio EPA is also assisting with this, and has been one of the leaders, I think, in trying to help establish this. So we appreciate the Ohio EPA support. The only other thing I would note is we had approved the funding for the replacement of the guardrails on 36. Route 3. I'm sorry.
You're gonna get it, Daryl.
Yeah, I know. Well, I don't know all the names of that road, but it's got a lot of names. That much I know. So you may have noticed that the repair started today. I think they're supposed to be done today. I don't know. I haven't confirmed that they are done, but thank you for the financial support to do that. And hopefully that improvement, if not done today, will be done tomorrow. That's it.
Great update, Mr. Hennessy. Any questions for Mr. Hennessy? All right, we're on to the engineer's report.
Thank you, Mayor.
I'll get out of here in the next 25 minutes.
You guys all said all my stuff today, so I'm done. The J.R. Smith Park and Reservoir Park. The one point about Reservoir Park is we are hoofing it to get it out to bid end of this week, early next week, which is important for some deadlines we have. Walnut Street.
may have come up when I was at a conference out of town last week, Public Works Conference. I may have come up with a solution to make that one a little bit easier with a federal government sole source option with a company that actually the company that consulted with us initially. I'll report on that later, but it could save us some significant time and funds to do that. Hoping that will occur. I'll keep you updated on that. We talked about the survey responses for the traffic calming 91. That's fantastic. And then on down to, I'll just skip down to the private development projects. We do have submittals in for phase 3 and 4 of the ravines and for the apartment complex, the Romanelli apartment complex, and we're in the process of reviewing both of those and taking some extra time to make sure they're consistent with development agreements. As we've noticed some concerns over the last few years that we need to rectify. So
I think that's been one focus area. I know Tim's been involved in this, Marie, a little bit, just looking back on, I've talked to Joe Gokenauer probably the most about this, but what gets approved in zoning, what gets approved in council, sometimes there's some minor tweaks. Then when it goes into engineering and final site design and landscape plans and all these other things, I mean, they're expenses for the developer, but what typically happens is these are multi-year, timeframes in between, zoning approval and what's actually being built. And I think we've identified that we have some work to do to close that gap, just to make sure that there's nothing glaringly missing. And Dan, you've been a big help with that. I know Daryl and Alex have done a really good job helping analyze those plans, but thank you.
Well, thank you for mentioning that. And I 100% agree. And I hope to work with Alex, Daryl, and Alyssa to create some kind of tracking so we can make sure that these commitments are lived up to and not post, after they're out there constructing. So thank you. I appreciate that. And I totally agree. Speaking of which, we're looking at Magnolia Park and price bonds for some trail connections. We'll get that straightened out shortly. Eagle Creek subdivision is one that is on hold they were ready to go to construction, but we're putting that on hold due to some issues with stormwater with the county engineer that was not situated during the review process that we're going to take care of. But I think the county engineer is becoming satisfied with the approach, and that will probably go under construction here in the next month. Kintner Crossing is going through some minor changes with a different developer. I don't think they rise to the level of having to come back to P&Z, but I just want to advise you that could be the case. We talked about Alyssa in the zoning district, and I agree. She is really good. She's a good communicator and really good at what she does. And lastly, right-of-way permits. I forgot to update them, so I'll let you know next month how many we've had. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. White? Great update. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, we're on to resolutions, no third or second readings. We do have several first readings. Resolution number 2023.20, a resolution awarding the contract for the Sunray Facilities Project, Sutherland Building Company. You're looking for an approval, Mr. Hennessy?
Yes, we are.
Okay. And this is for the facilities renovation project, police and municipal building. Right. Right. I would like to make a motion on suspending the rules.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Cooper. Discussion? Roll call.
Mayor St. John,
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Martin,
Yes.
Mr. Grumney,
Yes.
Mr. Neff,
Yes.
Mr. Ghost,
Yes.
Mr. Capel.
Yes.
7 yeas.
I'd like to make a motion on resolution number 2023.20.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Cooper. Discussion? Roll call.
Mayor St. John,
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Capel,
Yes.
Mr. Ghost,
Yes.
Mr. Neff,
Yes.
Mr. Grumney,
Yes.
Mr. Martin,
Yes.
7 yeas.
That's great. That's excellent because I saw somebody else moving into a hallway and
Yeah,
I mean,
we're gonna get
today,
snuggly there.
I saw a table and I'm like, man, we're gonna start having to get bunk desks or something. It's getting crowded.
Starting to look like the police department, right?
Takes your title out.
We're on to resolution number 2023.21. Supplemental resolution for services related to fire protection for property known as 78.017 acres of land in Berkshire Township, 2.002 acres in Berlin Township, 76.015 acres, Delaware County, Ohio. We're looking for an approval on this. You want
Yes,
me-
we passed a services resolution for this project. This is the first project that went outside of what would typically be a BST&G fire service area, this annexation. I was called by the auditor's office. They said it didn't address fire. Is BST&G going to serve this, or is it still going to be Berlin Township? They have their own fire department out there, or is it some collaborative? Again, Tim Ghost is our fire representative. Checked with him. He said, no, we are going to service that now, and we're looking at maybe some partnering in the future on some facilities, but this just confirms that service. I did leave a message verbally, but they'd like something in writing to that effect, and that this solves that issue. So we are looking for passage on that.
And
Do you need it tonight?
If possible, yes, we'd like to get it to them sooner than later.
Motion to suspend the rules.
A motion to suspend the rules,
Second.
second by Mr. Capel. Discussion, Mr. Ghost, did you have something?
I just wanted to add, I did confirm that verbally with Chief Kovach earlier this week via phone call. Once again, we had talked about that in one of our past board meetings, but it'll be serviced by the main station until the substation is built out near Camping World.
I'm just curious, the 2.002 acres are already in Berkshire Township, so they're already covered by BST&G, right?
True.
So we're not impacting that particular bit at all.
Well, both parcels were included in that annexation,
Right.
resolution for
Yeah.
services. But you're right. That's
Okay.
true. Yes, that the 2 is east of 3B and K, whereas the rest of it was west.
Okay.
True.
Thank you.
We're looking for a roll call on suspension of the rules.
Mr. Martin,
Yes.
Mr. Grumney,
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper. Yes. Mr. Neff,
Yes.
Mayor St. John,
Yes.
Mr. Ghost,
Yes.
Mr. Capel,
Yes.
7 yeas.
Motion on resolution 2023.21.
Got a motion by Mr. Morgan,
Second.
second by Mr. Capel. Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Martin,
Yes.
Mr. Capel,
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper. Yes. Mr. Neff,
Yes.
Mayor St. John,
Yes.
Mr. Ghost,
Yes.
7 yeas.
All right, excellent. All right, we're on to resolution number 2023.22. A resolution, we got a little typo there, approving the execution of memorandum of understanding related to a community reinvestment area and a school compensation agreement with the Big Walnut Local School District. If it's okay without a motion at this point, I can just speak to this very briefly. This is something that I've been working on with the school board, meeting with them in different formats for months now, but somewhat running in parallel to the zoning district being created. We were trying to put together an economic development package that will allow us to attract light manufacturing, light industrial users. And when we went out, we retained the Montrose Group several months ago. We've been meeting with them. One of the initial things that we did is we went out and baselined, what are other communities who are landing these projects doing? And one of the things that they do is they partner with their local school district to incentivize typically non-residential type development. And one way to do that is to have this community reinvestment area / school compensation agreement married together that then can be presented to developers and say, here's what we are willing to offer. I can tell you the school board was very receptive to this concept, especially given the fact of our pipeline that we have right now in terms of housing. I think it's somewhere like in the 1,000 units of apartments and 1,000 units of homes, somewhere around there that are not built yet, but they are approved. And I think the school district recognizes that they want to do anything they can to shift that tide and shift the tax burden onto the commercial and industrial segment. So with that said, I presented an open session to the school board. It was about 2 weeks ago. And they had passed the memorandum of understanding to put us on a path to execute a full agreement. They passed it unanimously. I was very thankful for that. And they're looking forward to us passing it unanimously and then walking in lockstep with them to explain to the community how we're working together to attract great business users. So with that said, I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Cooper. Discussion.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you to the school board on the record for passing that. Also, I wanted to attend that school board meeting, but we had our events meeting, as Murray told you all, at the same time. But I was able to that afternoon go back and watch the school board meeting. And if you have not done that, I encourage you to go back and watch our mayor speak. And it's been my experience, and I'm gonna just say it's probably all of your experiences, that our mayor has a way of taking very complicated ideas and teaching them at a level that we can understand and their importance, and just watching him at the meeting and explaining it to, you were on record. So you weren't just speaking to our school board, but to all the Big Walnut residents. And you just did such a good job explaining it and how important it was. And I'm just really proud of our school board. I'm proud of our council. And I'm proud of our mayor. And this is very exciting stuff. So
Thank you.
good job.
Mr. Gross.
Very well said, Ms. Cooper. I was kind of stole my thunder. I was gonna basically say the same thing. I was listening in live and
Yeah.
was very proud of Mr. Mayor. He did a great job and was very well heard. And the board they were very enthusiastic with their feedback and positive, and they passed it unanimously.
Thank you.
So it's exciting news.
Thank you. A lot of, I mean, that video, if you watch it, is going to make it sound like, hey, this is the first time the mayor's ever gone and talked to the board. And the fact is, like, there's a lot of work that goes on with individual to individuals, going to the Big Walnut Grill or grabbing a cup of coffee or talking on the phone. Like, hey, are we all in general alignment? Like, this is a good thing. And I just want to give credit to Dana and Daryl, Dana for validating a lot of what we're doing, because we're forecasting out not just for like next year, we're forecasting out 20, 30 years from now, what this landscape is going to look like from a tax makeup perspective. But Daryl, your leadership as well, great job just distilling down complicated information into manageable bite-sized chunks that then I can understand and I can communicate outward. So thank you, Daryl.
Yeah.
All right, I think we've got a motion and a second, and we're looking for a roll call and a suspension.
Mayor St. John,
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Martin,
Yes.
Mr. Grumney,
Yes.
Mr. Neff,
Yes.
Mr. Ghost,
Yes.
Mr. Capel,
Yes.
7 yeas.
All right. I would like to make a motion on resolution number 2023.22.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Cooper. Discussion. Roll call.
Mayor St. John,
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper.
Yes.
Mr. Capel,
Yes.
Mr. Ghost,
Yes.
Mr. Neff,
Yes.
Mr. Grumney,
Yes.
Mr. Martin,
Yes.
7 yeas.
Thank you very much. The next step in that process is to have a formal agreement. The MOU laid out the high level business terms, and the formal agreement, we expect to have a first draft soon that we can share with the school board. Just in terms of wrapping your mind around it, the MOU, I think, was 2 pages. The full agreement, maybe something like 5, 6, 7 pages, outlining the appurtenances of the agreement.
You got that.
Thanks. We're on to resolution number 2023.23, a resolution accepting the Second Amendment certificate of estimated resources for the fiscal year commencing January 1st, 2023, and certifying them to the county auditor. On this one and the next one, can we do 3 readings on this, or is it something you need right away? This is Stephanie.
I'll speak to that. The first one that you have in front of you, the second amendment certificate, that one, 3 readings. There's no urgency on that. The second one, which is the
2024 rates and amounts. This is just an annual, the annual ordinance resolution that the county provides. That needs to be passed and delivered to the county by October 1st.
Got it. Okay, so you'd be comfortable if we took action now to give you a little bit of breathing room? That
Yes.
fair?
That would be fine, or if we want to wait, that's fine.
Until the next meeting, right? I was just going to add, so the first resolution is related to the audit review that we did the last time. We had to do some corrections, so that's the reason why you see that one. The other one is pretty standard resolution. I mean, we will have a finance committee meeting, so we can go over it in more detail with the finance committee. If you feel comfortable with that for either one or for both of these.
Yeah, I'd be more than happy to explain it now or in finance committee.
Anybody, it's up to you guys. I think what I'm hearing is on the first one, we definitely don't need action. The second one we may, but no later than our next meeting, we need action, right? Is it okay to hold on these? We'll talk more in detail in finance and
Sounds good.
potentially pass both these next meeting.
Yes.
Thank you very much. All right, we're on to ordinances, third reading, ordinance
You
number.
didn't read the fifth resolution.
Oh, I'm
yet.
sorry. Thank you, sir. All right, so we have a first reading, right? Still on first reading. First reading, resolution number 2023.24, a resolution accepting the amounts and rates as determined by the Budget Commission and authorizing the necessary tax levies and certifying them to the county auditor. Thank you, sir. All right, we are on to ordinances, third reading, ordinance number 2023.16, currently tabled. I'd like to make a motion to untable this ordinance. Second by Mr. Neff. Discussion. Roll call.
Mayor St. John,
Yes.
Mr. Neff,
Yes.
Mr. Capel,
Yes.
Mr. Ghost,
Yes.
Mr. Grumney,
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper. Yes, Mr. Martin,
Yes,
7 yeas.
All right, so we've got an ordinance accepting a petition for annexation of territory consisting of 84.97 plus or minus acres of land located in Berkshire Township, Delaware County, and owned by William R. Rogers II, Lori Lynn, Lots Gazelle, Rich Rogers, trustee replacing William Rogers, and Patricia Rogers, both deceased and former trustee of the William Rogers and Patricia Rogers Family Trust, agreement UTA 7306, Mary Rogers Trusler, trustee UA dated the 14th day of August 2009, and John A. Rogers, and declaring an emergency. Are we looking to pass this by emergency? You are looking for an emergency. Okay. Would anybody like to make the motion on the emergency?
Motion on the emergency.
It's got a motion by Mr. Capel,
Second.
second by Mr. Grumman. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Capel,
Yes.
Mr. Grumney,
Yes.
Mr. Martin,
yes,
Mrs. Cooper. Yes, Mr. Neff,
Yes.
Mayor St. John,
Yes.
Mr. Ghost.
Yes.
7 yeas.
Motion on ordinance number 2023.16.
Got a motion on the ordinance,
Second.
second by Mr. Grumney. First was by Mr. Capel. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Capel,
Yes.
Mr. Grumney,
Yes.
Mr. Ghost,
Yes.
Mayor St. John,
Yes.
Mr. Neff,
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper. Yes, Mr. Martin,
yes,
7 yeas.
Right, no second readings, no first readings. We are on to new and unfinished business. We'll go through these first two items and then go around the horn for open discussion. First item under new and unfinished business, Squire Patton Boggs Capital Facilities Bond Engagement. I'll either kick it to Mr. Green or Mr. Hennessy.
Yeah, so basically this authorizes us to work with Squire Patton Boggs, Chris Franzman to do the bond, issue the bonds associated with the facilities improvement project. So we've been working with Mr. Franzman for a while, as we talked about along the way, till we actually had a project. We weren't going to be issuing bonds. Well, now that we have a bid, it's within the permitted amount via the council's ordinance. We're now ready, I think, to engage them to help us get to the next step, which is to issue the bonds. We're probably still maybe a month away from actually issuing the bonds, but there's a lot that happens between now and then to do that. So we're asking for your support to engage Mr. Franzman for that purpose.
I'll make that motion.
Got a motion by Mr. Martin,
Second.
second by Mr. Ghost. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Martin,
Yes.
Mr. Ghost.
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper. Yes. Mr. Grumney.
Yes.
Mr. Neff.
Yes.
Mayor St. John.
Yes.
Mr. Capel.
Yes.
7 yeas.
All right, the next topic is the Joint Recreational District. I'll be speaking about this, also referred to as the JRD. So what I'm looking for tonight, after I explain a little bit more about this, is a motion of support to nominate 2 people. I'd recommend myself and Tim Gose to be part of an exploratory committee for a joint recreational district. Very high level, a joint recreational district is an organization, a quasi-government organization, that based on the way it's formed, can acquire land, can, potentially put issues on the ballot to create funding sources. But one of the first things that we want to be able to do is try to gain partners when we look at a joint rec district. I do want to say this by no means should slow down any of our current parks activity. So this exploratory committee, the goal is that it would consist of the Big Walnut Local School District having membership, Sunbury, Galena, Genoa Township, Harlem, Trenton, Berkshire, Porter, and Kingston. The only organization that I know that has officially said they want to explore a joint recreational district is the Big Walnut Local School District. That happened the night that I spoke in an open public session. I've been talking to Mr. Crowell for months about this. When you look at a map and you say, where are we going to be in 20, 30 years? What land is going to be available to, potentially put a community center, a rec center, natatorium, preserve open space, all these things that collectively as a broader community, forget the technical title, joint recreational district, just how can we all work together to accomplish, more than just passive parks. Delaware County Preservation Parks is primarily passive parks. We're talking about a joint recreational district. I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves because, some of these, if you went down to each one of these townships, there's some townships that are wholly within like the school district boundary, some that are not. Genoa Township, for example, has a parks levy or bond issue already. So it's going to be complicated to get everybody to work together anyways. But if we can just get some participation from the elected officials from each one of these governmental entities, I think we'll be able to have some productive dialogue. And at the end of it, if we say, hey, we can. Okay.
Sorry, there was a cloud server error, I guess.
No problem. You need a couple more data centers.
We need to start over.
Yeah, start all over now.
So what I said is.
Don't tell him. I heard you. Don't tell him that.
So everybody unanimously supports that.
I'm on board.
Pledge of allegiance, please.
But each one of these entities ideally would have a primary and secondary person that would be represented. There obviously would, even in the exploratory committee, there's going to have to be ground rules that are set with like, okay, how do we vote to even take it to the next step? There's obviously no funding behind this at this point. And I think it's at least worth a shot to try to work together. I think we owe it to our residents to say that we're doing this because it is the right thing to do.
Mhm.
But if it doesn't work out, it's not going to stop us from continuing to do what we're doing in parks.
This was a priority that was discussed at the city council retreat. So thank you for starting this because this was high up on the list of priorities. So thank you.
Got it.
Thank you, Tim.
Tim's my motivation.
Yeah, right. I'm all for it.
His middle name is Parks.
100%.
I don't know that we need a vote unless you feel like we do, or somebody on staff feels like we need
I
to
think
do.
we ought to have a vote nominating you two to be on the committee, be our representatives to the joint recreation district.
I like that.
I'll make that motion.
Got a
I'll
motion by
second it.
Mr. Martin,
I'll second it.
second by Councilwoman Cooper. Is there any discussion on this topic? I rattled off a lot of information pretty quickly.
We're used to that.
Roll call.
Mr. Martin,
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper.
Yes.
Mr. Grumney,
Yes.
Mr. Neff,
Yes.
Mayor St. John,
Yes.
Mr. Ghost,
Yes.
and Mr. Capel.
Yes.
7 yeas.
All right. We are on to new and unfinished business. I'd like to start with Mr. Ghost. Come this way.
You guys may have seen on Facebook, the fire rescue truck is about to be ready.
I did.
It's probably 3 or 4 weeks left. Final tune up and things, and it looks great. I know Chief Kovacs is happy. So we're excited. Should be delivered within 30 days.
Nice.
That's excellent.
Yeah. Long time coming. So it's about a year.
Mr. Grumney?
I didn't know if there was an update on Mr. Adams and Mr. Craig's road issue.
Yeah,
Street
so, so this is the Pigtail Alley issue. We reached out to Mr. Adams a couple of times. I think we are tentatively scheduled to have a conversation with him and the neighbor tomorrow night at 4:30.
Okay.
So we've got it scheduled. He said he may not be able to join, but again, we are trying to move to the next level. I think where we are at this point is we need to talk through with him the business terms of what the residents that are impacted by a vacated alley, what does that mean for each one of them?
Mhm.
And we're trying to make sure that all of them are kind of on board with how it affects them. And then we can incorporate that into an agreement. So,
Thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Grumney.
Nothing here.
All right.
Yeah, as we discussed in the events committee, the Big Nut Strut is coming back around. It's on Sunday, October 8th. And I know what you're thinking. Don't fret. It's the Browns bye week. If you want to sign up and be guaranteed a t-shirt, get that done by September 13th. I know Joe and I were there last year. I'm not sure if anybody else was able to make it, but it's a good community event. Lots of fun. And I recommend, it's a fun event. So.
Yes.
And the Browns are off. So what else are you gonna do?
I can think of a lot of things, but I will be at the strut. Mr. Martin?
I don't have anything to.
All right, Mr. Neff?
Nothing to report.
Anything from staff? All right. We do have a need to. Come on in.
So when I was giving the report earlier, the one thing I didn't step up and say, and it is the support from the mayor was remarkable. It needs mentioned that as a matter of minutes after this has happened, there's a text message, everybody okay? Anything you need, the support is there, even to the extent of today's situation out of hand. They're checking in, hey, is everybody okay? It's remarkable, and it makes you feel as administrator that people do care about you and your agency. So thanks, appreciate it.
I'll pat him on his back for you.
Yeah. You know that they're.
All right, we do have a need to enter executive session per Ohio Revised Code 121.22 subsection G6. Details relative to the security arrangements and emergency response protocols for a public body or public office. We don't expect to take any action afterwards. So with that motion, may I have a second?
I'll second.
A second. I think the folks that we would want here are Mr. Hennessy, Mr. Bream, police force leadership. I think that's about all. And council. All right.
Getting out of it.
Yeah, we need a roll call, and we'll take about a 5-minute break before we start.
Mayor St. John,
Yes.
Mr. Ghost,
Yes.
Mr. Capel,
Yes.
Mr. Neff,
Yes.
Mr. Grumney,
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper.
Yes.
Mr. Martin,
Yes.
7 yeas.
All right, we will try to reconvene around 8:40. Thank you.